Over the past 2 decades, Lagos State has witnessed a worrisome trend of recurring building collapses, resulting in devastating loss of lives, displacement of families, and significant economic loss. These tragic incidents have largely been attributed to non-compliance with building codes, use of substandard materials, poor supervision, and weak regulatory enforcement. In spite of the numerous papers presented, conferences held, and recommendations made by professionals and government agencies, the crisis has persisted, raising critical concerns about implementation and accountability in the built environment. It is on this note that Android Homes, a prominent real estate investor, in collaboration with the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, University of Lagos, initiated this maiden edition of a public dialogue with the theme Recurring Building Collapse in Lagos, the Challenge of Regulatory Oversight and Construction Practices. The event was organized to honor the legacy and contribution of Professor Leke Oduwaye, a renowned academic and planning advocate, and to provide a credible platform for collective brainstorming among experts, academia, government officials, and the private sector to chart a practical and implementable way forward. The event took place on Thursday, 3rd July 2025 at the Julius Berger Auditorium of the University of Lagos, drawing participation from top professionals, scholars, government representatives, industry stakeholders, and students from across the environment sector. The program commenced with the arrival and seating of guests, followed by a unifying rendition of the national anthem and the University of Lagos anthem. We stand, Nigeria's soldier, proud to serve our sovereign motherland. The opening prayer was said by Dr. Jimo, who invoked wisdom and inspiration for the deliberations of the day.
Who planned this program with us and has brought every one of us here together to participate in this edition of Professor Leke Oduwaye Adron Home Urban Development Dialogue. We beseech him to be with us in this dialogue, guide the dialogue, and at the end of it all, we will all benefit and the country benefit from it.
Thereafter, dignitaries were introduced and invited to the high table amidst warm applause from the audience. The atmosphere was one of anticipation and shared purpose. The chairman of the local organizing committee, Dr. Sheson Adeyemi, in his opening remarks, welcomed all attendees and expressed profound appreciation to Android Homes for supporting a cause of such critical importance. He emphasized the goal of the dialogue as a call to action, not just to talk, but to galvanize real change through synergy between academia, professionals, and regulatory authorities.
And of particular interest to us today is the issue of building collapse. And this is because several productive lives and properties have been lost in the various incidents of building collapse, which also add to the intractable housing shortages experienced in Nigeria today. Although several efforts have been made in the past to address the issue of building collapse at various levels in Nigeria, yet the menace has remained a daily occurrence.
The chairman of the occasion, Town Planner Wahid Kadiri, a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, FNITP, delivered a powerful address reflecting on the deep-rooted challenges that have made building collapse a stubborn occurrence in Lagos. As a seasoned practitioner, he challenged all stakeholders present to rise above lip service and take ownership of the solutions, stressing the need for ethical practices and continuous professional development within the construction and planning professions.
The topic of this dialogue had come at the right time. Discussions about building collapse usually come up when there is an unnecessary collapse of buildings with fatalities, especially in high-brow areas. When building collapse in Mushin, maybe it's only those on the street that we know. But when a building collapses in Ikoyi, everybody is bound to know. And that's when we start talking about collapse. But in recent time, in the past 2 or 3 weeks, that has not been the reason. The discussions are usually reactionary in nature, with panels set up to unravel the causes of these collapses, and government promising, and I quote, not to leave any stone unturned. That's usually, you can guess what government will say with due respect to the PAMSEC. You can guess what the government reaction will be to any collapse happening in those eyebrow areas. Unfortunately, the public are never given the privilege of the outcome of the reports of the panels, not to talk of those found guilty.
Next, Dr. Taufik Ishola Salau, the head of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, delivered his welcome address in which he echoed the department's commitment to using research and training to proffer solutions to real-world problems. He reiterated the relevance of bridging the gap between academic findings and policy enforcement.
I find today's event not only timely, but absolutely crucial. Our department, committed to advancing safe, sustainable, and resilient urban research and development, has watched with great concern the increasing spate of structural failures in both residential and commercial buildings across Nigeria. These incidents, which often come with avoidable loss of lives and livelihoods, reflect deeply rooted issues ranging from poor planning practice to lack of enforcement, substandard materials, and inadequate oversight.
The Dean of the Faculty of Environmental Sciences, Professor Modukbe Umiri, also delivered a thoughtful address calling attention to the interconnected nature of building safety and urban sustainability. She encouraged a cross-disciplinary approach to addressing regulatory and construction failures.
To be here today honoring this wonderful man whose life is something that will never be forgotten. The subject of our discussion, which is recurrent building collapse in Lagos, the challenges of regulating oversight and construction practices, is something that always elicits a lot of reaction from everybody when it is mentioned. Building collapse has become almost an endemic problem, as has been mentioned by our chairman today. Almost every 2 weeks, you hear of a building collapsing. Or rarely does it occur without loss of life.
A number of goodwill messages followed, led by the Group Managing Director of Adron Homes, Are Adetola Emmanuel King, who restated the company's resolve to prioritize quality, integrity, and community safety in all their real estate developments. He called for a collective reawakening in the industry and expressed hope that the discussions would yield actionable outcomes.
Before us, recalling building collapse in Lagos, the challenge of regulatory oversight and construction practices is long overdue. It strikes at the very heart of every collective responsibility as a society to protect lives, preserve properties, and uphold integrity of our urban spaces. I must therefore commend the organizer of this important dialogue for bringing this issue to the front burner of public discourse. The reality is simple. Buildings do not collapse by accident. They collapse because somewhere along the chain of planning, approval, construction, or supervision, individuals chose to compromise.
Other well-wishers, including professional associations and alumni, commended the initiative and praised its timeliness.
The 2025 edition focused on recurring building collapse in Lagos, the challenge of regulatory oversight and construction practices. Could not have come at this more crucial time. We are indeed privileged to have Dr. Idris Salako, FNITP, an assistant professionals and a former Lagos State Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development as the guest lecturer. His insight will no doubt provide both clarity and direction of urgent reforms. As a professional body at the forefront of private sector urban planning consultancy in Nigeria, ATOCON aligns strongly with the objectives of this dialogue. We share the conviction that opens evidence-based discourse is vital to improving our physical planning system, strengthening regulatory institutions, and promoting integrity in construction practices. Building collapse is not just a structural failure, it is a tragic reflection of systemic lapses in policy enforcement, professional accountability, and urban governance. As a consultant and practitioner, we have a collective responsibility to change the narrative through advocacy, innovation, capacity building, and above all, ethical practice.
The collapse in Lagos State, and by extension even in Nigeria, is a major problem which we all know and we heard about virtually on daily basis or weekly basis. And each time we experience this type of tragic incidents, we hear, especially from the government circle, that either a committee is set up to investigate and so that will prevent a future occurrence, or such thing will be a thing of the past. But maybe a week after, or about 5 days after, you hear of another building collapse, somewhere else. I think, like the president of ATOPON did say, we really need to search ourselves very well, especially those of all professionals in the built environment. I can still say this, that my great-grandfather constructed a 3-story building in my village. I don't know, maybe I think it should be over 60, 70 years ago. The building is still standing in the village. Then with all the modern technology, the building technology that we have, why is it that we are having even building under construction giving way? I think it's a big challenge, and we need to really talk to ourselves and to look inward what we have not been doing correctly.
Aware that we're supposed to consider it solely for Lagos State, but we are one Nigeria, so whatever problem happens in Lagos here or anywhere in Nigeria is still also a problem. And I'm also aware that BCPG is not only operating in Lagos State, it's all over Nigeria. So it's important for us that we're having this gathering today as one of the ways to provide solutions to the problem we're facing on the building collapse. And I believe at the end of the day, we'll be able to come up with resolutions that can help us all as practitioners, consultants, and for those of us in the government as also regulatory offices. The topic is very important because we cannot afford to continuously be having loss of life. On the part of the governor of Lagos State, this I know very, very, very well, that is very, very passionate about bequeathing on citizens of Lagos State a befitting environment. And thus, we can't afford to be having building collapse. So today, I will enjoin us to sit down, relax, and be able to gain one or two things that can help us solve this problem. It's also very interesting for me because I'm working on a book that is on building collapse. And I think along the line of the course, maybe I will come in with some of what I've seen in the course of the study. So in general, please let us open up our mind and contribute.
Unfortunately, my MD couldn't be here, but he has asked me to give his goodwill message to all present here today, and it's an honor for him to be invited for this wonderful occasion and such a very important topic in Nigeria and in Lagos State in particular. Well, in Nigeria, but unfortunately he couldn't be here, like I said. So he has asked me to specially thank the organizers of this occasion for giving him an opportunity to participate, and he has also asked that we ask the sponsors and the organizers to make it an annual event so that everybody, all the participants and all the future participants can continue to learn and gain from this particular occasion.
Representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, was Professor Michael Adebamowo, who in his speech highlighted the university's pride in being at the forefront of thought leadership and solution-driven discourse. He affirmed the institution's readiness to support future collaborations aimed at solving Nigeria's urban development challenges.
We are gathered here today to address a matter of grave concern, the recurring building collapse in Lagos, a tragedy that not only claims lives, but also erodes public trust in our urban infrastructure. A tragedy that the 21-story Ikoyi building is still very fresh in my own personal memory, because the promoter of that development happened to be a close friend in person of Femi Oshibono of blessed memory. So it's personal to me when one remembers what happened. So this national tragedy can be discussed from different viewpoints, ranging from architecture, from planning, engineering, real estate, socio-economic point of view, legal and socio-political point of view. Therefore, the theme of today's lecture, recurring building collapse in Lagos, the challenge of regulatory oversight and construction practices, could not be more timely and urgent. As Lagos continues to evolve as a mega city, the safety, resilience, and sustainability of its built environment must be treated as a shared responsibility. Yet, we continue to witness these painful consequences of poor construction practices, weak enforcement mechanisms, and institutional complacency. This dialogue is not just a forum for critique, it is a call to action, a call to strengthen regulatory frameworks, invest in professional capacity, and foster a culture of accountability in the construction industry. As an academic institution of repute and distinction, University of Lagos remains committed to fostering research, dialogue, partnership that support sustainable urban development and protect the lives and livelihoods of our citizens. Therefore, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, I would like to commend the organizers of this event, Department of URP, Dean, Faculty of Environmental Sciences, our own revered Emeritus Prof, and particularly Adron Homes.
One of the highlights of the day was their special presentation by Adron Homes, which showcased the company's core values, development model, and efforts in ensuring compliance with building standards and commitment to housing safety and delivery.
And as a foremost real estate development company, we don't just build, buy lands, and build houses. We also strongly stand for affordable housing. We stand for excellence and infrastructural development with high integrity, delivering quality estate with modern amenities across Nigeria. Our products ranges from low-cost service plus to luxury gated estates, all tailored to meet the needs of individuals, families, and investors, both within Nigeria and in the diaspora. And I'm very happy this morning to tell the House that as we speak, there is a product I do refer to as Ide Hot, tagged Vidco series products, reloaded. And what about these products? The product is positioned to address our housing need at any level. And as a matter of fact, we are saying through this product that no Nigerian should have an excuse of not having a roof on their head. It is well packaged, affordably, and as low as monthly payment of 10,000 naira.
A major highlight of the event was the dual keynote addresses presented both physically and virtually. The first keynote was delivered on site by Town Planner Tunji Odunlami, Honorable Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Ogun State. In his deeply analytical presentation, he chronicled past incidents of building collapse in Lagos and neighboring states, outlining both institutional weaknesses and gaps in enforcement that have allowed these tragedies to repeat. His keynote speech explored the legal, administrative, and professional lapses contributing to the problem, and he offered a roadmap for future reform, calling for clearer rules among regulators, investment in capacity building, and strict accountability mechanisms.
The theme of this dialogue, Recurring Building Collapse in Lagos, the challenge of regulatory oversight and construction practices, is very much welcome. As far back as 2000, 25 years ago, the Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Building had at a seminar themed Building Collapse, Causes, Preventions, and Remedies, dealt extensively with the issue of building collapse, analyzed the various causes, and made several very good recommendations. 7 years later, in 2007, 18 years ago, Town Planner S.A. Yusuf, fellow Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, the then General Manager of the Lagos State Physical Planning and Development Authority, in a position paper he presented at a stakeholders forum on collapse of building in Lagos State, entitled Collapse of Buildings, a Threat to Sustainable Physical Development in Lagos State, also analyzed the causes and effects of building collapse and proffered actionable solutions. Between then and now, many seminars, conferences, dialogues, press briefings, name it all, have taken place on the subject, essentially focusing on Lagos, the epicenter of building collapse in Nigeria. Somebody just showed me a while ago, I don't know whether it is true or not, that another building just collapsed this morning, right here in Lagos. Well, so one wonders, why another dialogue on the same subject? Obviously, building collapse has become an abiku, coming and going these several seasons, a la John Pepe Clark, in his plaintive poem, Abiku. The answer may be because despite all these efforts, building collapse has not abated, not only in Lagos, but in Nigeria generally, and therefore, the need to keep talking about it. After all, the Yoruba say, "Bí iná kò bá tán láṣọ, ẹ̀jẹ̀ ò lè tán léèkánná." Oftentimes, discussions and attentions focused on building collapse occur only whenever there's a collapse, and somebody, one of the speakers earlier, has said so. And this is usually short-lived. After a lot of noise has been made, committees, commissions of inquiry, all different names are set up, whose far-reaching recommendations are rarely implemented, to the letter, if at all. And life goes on until the next collapse. The truth is that we keep talking because there has been no action, at best tokenistic action, following the series of talking, and hopefully, perhaps, those who should act will do so. I'm one of them. Therefore, my intervention today is not really to say anything new, and a lot has been said this morning, but to say them again, and possibly in a new way that may goad all of us stakeholders in the built environment professions, especially those in regulation, to fresh and result-achieving actions, because we are all involved.
The second keynote speech was delivered virtually by Professor Ayo Omotayo, a distinguished scholar and Director General, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Kuru.
At over 20 million units. This crisis has led to overcrowding, substandard living conditions, and an ever-growing demand for affordable housing. With a rapidly expanding population projected to exceed 220 million, the housing shortfall continues to widen, leaving millions of Nigerians without proper shelter. Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, cited in this day, sometimes in 2025, observed that the housing deficit in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world. Consequently, the country needs to construct approximately 700,000 houses annually for the next 20 years to bridge the gap. Added to this woe is the recurring building collapse in Nigeria, which of course is the crux of this dialogue. It is difficult to imagine that Nigeria, while still contending with the problem of insufficient housing, is losing at a rapid rate the already standing buildings that could help bridge the shortage gap. Worse still is the fact that this problem is more prevalent in Lagos, where a substantial population of the country is domiciled.
Following the key addresses, the citation of the guest speaker, Town Planner Dr. Idris Salako, was read to highlight his sterling career and leadership contributions as a former Lagos State Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development.
At the University of Lagos with a master's degree and a PhD in urban and regional planning as well. Currently, he's pursuing a second doctorate in, focusing on effect of city growth and expansion at the Salinas University of Science and Technology, at the University of Science and Literature. With over 27 years of experience, he is a highly regarded urban planner, development strategist, a public sector leader specializing in urban and regional planning, infrastructure.
Dr. Salako's presentation was both analytical and solution-driven, identifying the structural, institutional, and political factors that allow building collapses to persist. He dissected the gaps in oversight, the failure of building control processes, and the neglect of planning ethics before presenting a comprehensive blueprint for reform, calling on regulatory bodies to work hand in hand with professional associations, developers, and the public.
Topic I've been asked to speak on here, recurring building collapse in Lagos, the challenge of regulatory oversight and construction practices. Like I said, when we agreed on this topic, the question I asked myself was, how do I approach this? And thank God, today, do I tell the chairman of the occasion that there is no need for me to deliver this lecture because we have all said all those things I needed to say here. And like the commissioner from Ogun State said, he did not envy me because we have said it all. But why doing this? I told myself, can I look at this thing from another perspective that may be a bit different from what all of us have been saying here, and which will form the basis of what I'm going to present to us today.
Immediately after Dr. Salako's presentation, a panel discussion was held to further dissect the key issues raised. The session was moderated by the chairman of the occasion, Town Planner Wahid Kadiri, and featured seasoned professionals and policy experts who brought diverse perspectives on improving the built environment. Key points discussed included 1. Can delays in planning permits lead to building collapse? 2. How can planning agencies win public trust to prevent collapse? 3. What should builders do to prevent collapse beyond just construction? 4. Do old buildings mean danger? The role of urban renewal in preventing collapse. And 5. Is the Certified Accreditation Program CAP really reducing building collapses? This was followed by a lively question and answer session where audience members, students, professionals, and public officers engaged with the speakers and panelists, posing practical questions and offering suggestions.
Maybe they're on the ground floor or second floor, and the building is fully sold off, and you now have the pressure. So the temptation will now come in. We now in Lagos, the ministry, we are working very seriously now in terms of revision of our approval orders. Let's not deceive ourselves. Land in Lagos is limited, and we have to go high. Let's not deceive ourselves. So there are cases now by I deliberately challenge. Why are you making a submission of a 4 floors in this area when you can go up to 10 floors? If you don't have the money now, why don't you do the 10th floor and stop at 4 that your money can take you now? And if in future your money comes in, you can now go up. Rather than doing the 4 now, in a year's time, you now want to add 2 more. It's not proper for...
The submission of the Honorable Commissioner, when he said he was involved in a project where the design was going on. That is, the design had not been finalized and the design had been approved. What does this say to the issue raised by the guest speaker about delayed in time of getting statutory approval? And how will this affect building collapse? Thank you.
Aspect of delay in the area of LAPSCA or LASPA in terms of getting the approval and speeding up the process, there is one thing the speaker spoke about, and that is the aspect of digitizing planning permits to make it faster. Though I know we have not fully gone into it, but I know Lagos State is trying a bit, but more can be done. And what I mean is this, in terms of digitizing the ministry itself, one of the things the speaker spoke about that is very salient is that there is a little challenge between LAPSCA and LASPA, in their delivery.
The program ended with the presentation of awards and plaques of appreciation to contributors, followed by a heartfelt vote of thanks and closing prayer, bringing the day's enlightenment and action-oriented engagement to a befitting end.
On behalf of the Department of Urban and Regional Planning, University of Lagos, this award is being presented this day to town planner Wahid Kadri, a fellow of the institution, and is also a past president of Nigerian Institute of Town Planners.
In conclusion, the maiden dialogue in honor of Professor Leke Oduwaye did more than reflect on the painful reality of building collapse. It laid down a pathway for action backed by expertise, research, and shared responsibility. By bringing together key voices from the public, private, and academic sectors, this event marked a new beginning in the collective fight against building failures in Lagos. As echoed throughout the session, the time to act is now, and with platforms such as these, the city moves one step closer to a safer, better regulated urban future. This report was filed by Cable Plus Property Media. For full video coverage and post-event analysis, follow at Cable Plus Property on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.